in the darkness, want a taste of the pain that you give me when I'm honest. I ain't the same when I'm on it. I'ma take me to the face. I'm too high to try and hide it. You wanna see me in a coffin with the nails in my head, bury me without an option. So you finally got a taste. I guess I wasn't such a waste. I always said I wouldn't hate you.
Is that about where you want the chair?
Mm-hmm.
Episode. Really excited for this. Tea time with Tea Kettle. Today we have a wonderful cup of herbal tea. Absolutely wonderful. And behind me, a little bit more important, we have my 1976 Triumph Spitfire. Quintessentially British car. Absolutely love it. And I've just done a whole lot of work for it. So we're going to kind of walk through it. So story is, I'm on lunch at work one day and I'm driving through downtown, and go past the bus stop, and my coworker says to me, "Oh wow, look at that Porsche that's for sale outside the bus stop." And I turn and I look and I see this. Not quite a Porsche, but very, very close. Second best for sure. No. So I took a look at it, and I've just spilled tea all over myself. We're gonna keep going. So I took a look at it, and I called up Adam, who at the time knew a little bit more about these cars than I did, and you know, it was rough, honestly. I hope that I've got a picture of it. I know I do. I'm sure that we'll put it in. 6 different shades of red, primer everywhere, a little bit of surface rust, thankfully nothing through. So I called the guy up and, go for a test drive, and it is knackered. At the time that I picked it up, I got about 5 miles out of new spark plugs. It was running terribly rich. U-joints were all bad. Clutch was basically disintegrated. Really quite a miracle that I got it home. So we've done a lot to it. Really, really good now. I'm super happy with this car. One thing that you'll notice makes it super easy to work on, right for the first project car, is that it has a proper bonnet, which allows me to really get under the hood when I'm working on this car. The whole thing flips up, the entire clamshell goes like this, and I'm able to really get in there and start wrenching. Absolutely brilliant. Reason for that, this car breaks down all the time, so the brilliant engineers at Leyland knew that they had to make this easy to work on. If that feature didn't exist, these cars would never sell. And fun fact, they actually sold more of these in the United States than they did in Great Britain. Very, very interesting. So if we continue to move sort of under the hood here, what we have is a standard 1.5 liter engine made into a 4-speed. Now there's optional overdrive on these. I did not have overdrive. I would love to upgrade to that someday. It desperately needs it as I hit 4,500 RPM at 70 miles an hour in top gear. So, very, very simple here. It's almost identical to a tractor engine, frankly, side draft engine, which basically means that the intake and the exhaust manifolds are on the same side of the car. Definitely not the ideal design, but it does indeed make it quite easy to work on. Very, very simple technology, frankly outdated for the year 1976. You have a flat tappet cam. Of course, you had points ignition. This has since been upgraded to electronic ignition by the previous owner. What I've done, I've touched just about every system on this car aside from the suspension. That's about the only thing that's left to do. Very first thing was to drop the drive shaft, replace all the fuse joints. As I mentioned, they were quite bad. I was getting terrible knocking on deceleration. Put the new clutch in and lightly refresh the transmission, which basically just amounted to new gaskets. But the exciting things that I've done, a little bit more exciting than just the clutch, you can see in the background that the clutch, or the carburetor has been upgraded. Originally, you have a Zenith Stromberg constant depression type carburetor, which equates to be a single barrel. That carburetor is fine, but you're going to be quite limited in terms of tuning it, getting performance out of it. And something was wrong with mine where no matter how I would tune it, even after a rebuild, I would still be running quite rich. I think there was actually something wrong with the fuel pressure regulator. Unrelated. But nonetheless, we've upgraded to a Weber. It's a 32-36 progressive, which means as you step onto it, onto the throttle, you start to open up the second barrel in it, get into more air, more fuel, and it's quite really is a fun feel. Very, very smooth, very easy to tune. The Weber carbs are very simple, very robust. I am extremely happy for it. If you're going to be getting a car like this, I would say that the Weber upgrade is absolutely a must, especially from the single Zenith Stromberg. Right below the carburetor, we've upgraded. We've got an exhaust header, or exhaust manifold, instead of the standard header that's included, other way around. Electronic ignition, like I've talked about. The most exciting thing, really excited to be here, is I've actually just gotten done with a complete engine rebuild. So, went to the track, of course we saw the footage of that, and I had a slight oil leak that was progressed quite a bit after the track. Obviously I drove it quite hard that day. So I thought, okay, you know, I'll throw in some new gaskets, and while I'm in there I might as well take the head off, and I thought, okay, now's a good time to upgrade the head, put in dual valve springs, put in bronze valve guides, and lighter alloy caps, you know, that kind of thing. Just sort of make the top end a little bit more robust. Take the head off, and there's quite a lot of carbon on the pistons. So I pour a little bit of degreaser on it, and I notice that it drains quite quickly. What that means is that my piston rings were bad. So, next step would be to take the pistons out, and at that point the crankshaft's going to be out, the bearings will be out. It got to a point where I needed to do so much that I just kind of, you know, tossed it and just said I might as well do a complete rebuild on it, and that's what I've done. In the process of that, I have done a few upgrades. Most namely, we bored the block out 20 over. So obviously the big thing with that is I'm going to get slightly, very marginally more performance, but also I'm going to have entirely, you know, resurfaced bores, which is very big because obviously I was losing some compression, you know, with the old rings, and I'm sure that the shape of them were irregular, so this is quite good. We've also decked a little bit off the head. I've raised the compression ratio. Stock on 1976 in the United States, it was 9:1 compression. This is now 9.5:1. Not a big jump, but again, while I have the head off, I might as well do it. I don't intend to really raise the compression ratio much more than that. I still very much just want to drive this on the street. I don't particularly want this to be a track car because I don't want to mess around with a roll cage and everything like that. Point is, we're going to keep it at 9.5:1. It runs standard pump premium gas. You know, it's just fine how it is. Talked about everything that I was doing to the head earlier. Of course, I did go through the dual valve springs, valve guides, light caps, and everything. I did decide to keep the stock cam, and the reason for that is, like I said, I don't need this to be a track car. And, you know, camshafts are quite expensive, and it's just, is it worth it for me to put another, you know, $300 or $400 into an engine where, quite frankly, I don't need that amount of an upgrade. So it still does have the original cam. Other than that, though, everything was replaced, repaired, you know, whatever. And it's running quite good. We are 50 miles into the rebuild. As you can see, we've just gone for a drive with it. Everything seems to be really good. It'll probably have its first oil change tonight after 50 miles. Make sure that everything's good. Make sure that there's no glitter in the oil. But I'm not expecting anything. I'm quite happy. So, you step in, and you're greeted by beautiful wood paneling. Absolutely love it. You know, the analog gauges, everything is just so classic in this car. And like I said, to me it kind of gives a like an outdated vibe. I would say in 1976, this is something that you would expect to find out of the 60s or perhaps even the late 50s, but I do quite like it. Good news is, with it being a later car, you do have some modern amenities, most namely in terms of safety. You do have seatbelts, no airbags, but God forbid we get an accident and wreck this car. I've at least got that on my side. It's got the original radio. I had that refreshed last winter. Had it totally gone through, new capacitors, rebalance and everything, so that sounds great. Really happy with that. It definitely makes a difference on those back rows. To be able to have your favorite songs going is, you know, really a lot of fun. I'd love to, you know, talk about the features in this car and what the big selling points are, but frankly it is quite bare bones. I believe when this car was sold, it was somewhere around that 2,000 pound range, probably slightly off on that, but it was extremely cheap. As such, there's not many features with it. I do have some of the very few though, and I'll show you here. This is an absolute game changer. They sell an optional tonneau cover for this, which I've got. You can tuck it right behind your seats, falls right in. Then you're able to pull it up and over it. I'm not going to clip it in, but you get the idea. Goes over the passenger seat as well, and the good news is, as you can see, you can divide it, so I can drive the top with just it over the passenger seat. Not only do I think it looks quite cool, but it's really nice. It allows me to go through the car wash, get out, put the rest of the tonneau cover on, and I can spray it down without hosing down my interior. Doesn't quite work with the original soft top on it. When I have the soft top up, it's got this interesting feature that it activates where if it rains outside the car, it also rains inside. Quite nice. Don't know how Britain managed to perfect that in the 70s. It's quite revolutionary. I also do have for this car a factory hardtop. It's metal, matching red and everything. I don't really put that on a whole lot, to be honest. I don't drive this in, you know, rainy weather or anything like that. But it's kind of one of those things that, you know, it brings up the resale value a little bit, and, you know, hardtops alone can go for, you know, upwards of $300 or even $400. So it's definitely worth it for me to hang on for it. You know, maybe towards the end of the season I'll put it on, whatever. Anyways, that's about it for the 1976 Spitfire. If you're looking for a fast car, this is certainly not it. In a drag race against a semi-truck, I reckon that they would pull about 3 lengths on me, roughly. So definitely not fast. But if you're looking for something where you can, you know, cruise with the top down, especially in these, you know, fall weathers against the leaves and everything, there's really nothing like it. It takes the corners reasonably well, extremely easy to work on. So if you're looking to either get your first project car like I did, or get into the sort of the British motoring experience, we'll call it, really there's hardly a better way to do it than a Spitfire, particularly a Spitfire 1500 like this. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time on Tea Time.